All right, so we're going to continue Hilchos Melicha, Siman Ayin Aleph. Maybe we'll do a little bit of Ayin Beis. They're relatively small simanim that deal with inyanim that are not necessarily so relevant. Melicha Sarosh Batlefayim V'Amoach. Sen Ayin Aleph deals with how to salt the head. As you know, for Rosh Hashanah, people like to have the head of a sheep. Tlofayim, the hoofs. Moach, the brains. And for some, the brains are a delicacy. So it's important for us to know how to deal with them. Okay, so before we actually go into it, I did look up a few points from last week as far as blood is concerned. Human blood versus animal blood. Is there any detectable difference between blood that is from the arteries, blood that is the capillaries, blood that is from the veins, organs, whatever? In reality, blood is blood. It's made up of various components. There is, however, a difference in the hemoglobin, in the coloration of the blood, between blood that's been oxygenated, and in other words, when it absorbs the oxygen, it becomes more red. That's the other way around. Once it releases the oxygen, it's not as red. So therefore, in the veins, it appears to be bluish. Even though it's not really bluish, it appears like that. But if you were to open up a vein, you would see it wouldn't be the same color as that blood that goes through the arteries. There are some additional minor differences depending on where the blood is. Some blood may have more glucose than other blood. And that is why when they prick your finger to test for sugar, they're pricking versus taking blood from some other place, because apparently some blood, depending on where it is, has more glucose and other nutrients as well. So it's not very different as far as what we can see, not too different, but apparently, depending on where it is at a given time, may be a little bit slightly different color. Whereas, as we will see today, it's also shaya for today's Siman. By an animal, dam ba'in, dam coming from the mokom mashchita, will be somewhat different than the dam ha'evorim. Not only is one iser koros and the other is an iser lav, apparently one will be more difficult to remove than the other. That was one point that I looked up. The second area that I wanted to clarify from last week, which I still need to, by the way, go through the recording of this year. I already did half of it. I still have a portion. Is the gabe the halacha of not doing business with non-kosher food. I emphasize the point of lifnei lotite michsha, which is the main point when you own a business where Jewish customers will buy. In other words, obviously there is that issue. The issue of lifnei iver is a problem in various ways. If one causes another Jew to commit an avera, he's basically putting a stumbling block before one who is blind, not necessarily physically blind, but he is ignorant or unaware of the. So even though sometimes it's called mesayea, you're actually assisting him in completing the avera. At other times it's called lifnei iver, you're simply enabling him, in a sense, of facilitating the avera by putting it before him. So when you own a business, and that business sells non-kosher food items, and Jewish people can be your customers, that is definitely one of the issues. However, the issur of doing business in general with treif food is not because of lifnei iver. Because what I did not clarify was the main halacha in dealing with non-kosher food was said even if you sell it to a goy, exclusively. So what could be the problem then? On that, the reason given is that you should not come eat from it. Okay? So it's a derabanan, according to most poskim, it's a derabanan. So even though you're selling it to a goy, in other words, you don't have Jewish customers dealing with it. Selling it to a goy, the reason why they forbade it is because you may come to eat from it. Okay? So both are correct, but depending on the circumstances. Okay? Jewish customers, you have the additional problem of lifting. But even selling it to a goy, which is the basis of the halacha, that you can't just do business, is because you may come to eat from it.
When you say all non-kosher products?
The oraisa, not the rabbanans. The isur is an isur de oraisa. doing business with things that are forbidden deraisa, not things that are forbidden derabanan. On that, the halacha does not apply. So that's an additional detail.
Yeah,
we said it, but perhaps we didn't clarify it enough that it would not apply under Rabbanas. The Rabbanas, there's no resistance. Exactly. Yeah. It wouldn't be such an because it's exero. The whole thing is, you may come to eat from it.
Primarily.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Well, seafood.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
Wine and stam yain.
Stam yain is not the raisa. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Stam yain. All right. Even though by yain there are other chumras, by wine there's a difference because it's, it resembles the original. Wine is wine.
Yes, for sure.
For sure, not sure. Even behano. Okay. So what I think we could do in order to make this siman a little bit easier to follow, it's not so difficult, is just to give a little bit of a hagdama of what we're dealing with here. In Ayin Beis we'll be dealing with the heart and the lungs too. In Ayin Aleph we're dealing with the head, the hoofs, and the brain. We're still in Hilchas Melicha. We're not necessarily talking about tzli yet, even though tzli is a method in preparing almost any type of meat. What we're concerned here is, first and foremost, is to get the blood out from those organs that contain blood. The head, just like any other part of the body, does have blood. The problem is that with the head, you're dealing with hair on the head, and you're dealing with the brains inside the skull. So the skull, in a way, blocks the salt from getting to the brain. If I want to get this blood out, if I want to do melicha, I want to cook, regardless of what you plan to do with it later, you want to get the blood out. So melicha may have a problem getting through if there is hair. Just like you cannot really lechatchila salt chicken with its feathers on it. There's a whole question of behefsin meruba, what happens. Rabbi Elyahu Yosef actually spoke to him about it. Has a whole tshuva on it. What happens if somebody salted chicken with the feathers on it? Behefsin meruba only. Lechatchila you can't do it. Is a problem? Do you have to do it again? But lechatchila for sure it's not good. So here you have the hair. You have the hair that may be in the way. And you have the skull that's in the way of getting through the brain. So the question is how to best deal with it. How should you go about it? Now we briefly did touch on tchol. I'm sorry, not on tchol, on kachal. The tchol is the spleen. We'll talk about it another time. But we did, remember we spoke about the kachal. The kachal is the udder of the animal that has ibasur b'cholav. You want to squeeze out and get all the milk that's possible in there before you decide how you want to consume it. So there's a special way of preparing the kachal, of how to cut it up, crisscross it, and how to squeeze out the milk, even after you've cut it up, to make squeeze, you get all of it out. This is in order to extract as much as you can of the milk. So here too, with the rosh, tlafaim, the moach, it's a little bit different, and as we will see with the heart, the method of getting it done properly is slightly different, because you have here the issue of the hair, and you have the issue of the skull that's blocking from getting to the brain. So you may say, well, why don't you just take out the brains? Well, as we're going to see, that's what they recommend. According to everyone, if you just remove the brains and salt them separately, not in the head, then you're doing things 100% right. Then you're not going to have the problem of something blocking it. Because the question is, okay, I'm going to salt the head. Is salting the head just on the outside enough? Well, we do have, if you recall from before in Samach Tes, the halacha of salting from one side versus both sides. We do both sides, we do all around. But some hold, Rashba I think, that if you salt it from one side, even though it's thick, but the evid it's okay. Okay, so we always are going to have a din of b'di'evet and lechatchila. So the question is, what's the best way to salt the head? So we have the two issues. We have the hair and we have the brain. So in the Rashba you have two opinions. You have the Yesh Oimrim, one opinion, and the Rashba himself. They hold that you salt the head, even though there's hair a little bit there. Then you put the head on top of a flame, and the purpose of doing that is to singe the hair, in the same way you can do that by chicken. You just want to singe it, right? And then you salt it again. that's one opinion. The second opinion of the Rashba himself says that you cut the head in two. And he says there that after you've cut the head in two, you salt not only the outside, you salt also the inside. What about the hair? He says the hair is not me'akev. But he did say cut the head in two, so that you can salt it from the two sides. As we will see, the Shuchan Aruch brings this suggestion. So, Beis Yosef says, even though we know that Melicha, according to the Rashba, will be sufficient to do it from one side, lechatchila, everybody's in agreement that you should salt it from both sides. So therefore, even with the head, that would be a good reason to cut it in half, so that you can do it from those sides. The Aruch HaShulchan I saw has a different take on all of this. He says that don't think, even though it does appear to be that for the Mechaber, that this may even work for the head, for the brain, the Aruch HaShulchan says don't think that the reason for cutting is so that you should be able to get to the brain. No, it's just for the head itself. The head has meat, remember. The head has meat. And if you want to salt the head properly, you want to do it from the two sides. The Taz and Shach, however, learn that cutting of the head is really only a mitzvah min mufchar. If you don't want to cut the head, it's enough to do what we will see in Seif Gimel. Seif Gimel, we have an additional way of how to do it, of how to get through the brains, by perforating the head. You don't necessarily have to cut it. So, okay. So what the Rashba mentions of cutting the head in two is a lechatchila din, according to the way the Shach and Taz learn. Not that it's a necessity. The only question is, will that cover the brain too? Doesn't appear like the Aruch HaShulchan agrees with that. Doesn't appear like everybody would agree that will, by itself. Well, obviously, if you cut it in two, you're going to get to it. But is it really a necessity for the brain to cut it in two or not? That's what's not so clear here. That's why the Mechaber talks about the brain separately in Seif Gimel, which is why the Aruch HaShulchan says that makes sense that he should talk about it separately, because here we're only dealing with the head, the meat of the head. So, if you did it on one side, it may be okay, but it's always better to do it on the two sides. From the two sides, meaning cut it and do it from inside and out. So, before I read it inside, maybe I'm going to just give you a little bit of an introduction about the hoofs. Hoofs have meat too. The problem with hoofs is that if you salt them just like that by themselves, according to some, you're basically treating it as a kli she'eino menukav. There's nowhere really for the blood to flow out. It's like a self-contained vessel. So it is very much recommended, and it's more elaborated on in Siman Samach Ches, which is not Melicha, it's Hilchas Dam. Over there it talks more about blood, how to take out, how to eliminate blood in all kinds of situations other than just meat. There's the blood of eggs and so forth. So there it mentions the fact that the hoofs, if you don't make a cut, an incision in them somewhere, you won't be able to have the blood will not be able to drain out. So therefore, the Rashba brings it down too, that the correct approach with the hoofs is to make an incision, a cut, and to put it down. And when you're salting it, as we'll see with the head too, there's a certain position that you have to put it down as well as the hoofs. For example, with the head, it is important that the moka mashchita, or the nostrils, are facing down, because that's where the blood is going to flow through. Imagine taking the skull, the entire skull, and putting it upside down. Okay? It's going to be more of a problem. So it's important to know the position, to place it properly, so that the blood will flow out. With klofayim, with the hoofs, since in a sense it's a, what do you call it, like a cartilage, bone, it doesn't have where to go, it's all enclosed, according to some opinion, if the blood will not be able to drain out, it's necessary to make that cut before you salt it. So we're still talking about salting. Salting is the correct approach here. Before you do bishul, before you do anything else, you still could salt it, but you have to know how to salt it. So with glofayim, you don't have to cut it up in pieces. By the way, you know what? Why would somebody want to have the hoofs? So you can say, well, in the old days they were poor, they wanted to have every morsel, I guess, of meat. But there's another reason why you would want to have the cha, bache in Farsi, or galer in Yiddish. No? You basically use, you could apply gala to other things, but basically it's a very tasty, if you like it, it's tasty. It's the fats that coagulate from putting a piece of foot bone, I guess, in water, letting it cook. You may have seen it when you had chicken in the pan, put it in the fridge, the next day you see all that fat that has accumulated. So in the same way you have that kind of fat, you have from the animal foot especially the foot, a certain fat that coagulates, and it becomes a delicate dish, a famous Ashkenaz dish, I think Persian dish, called either pacha or galer, and they put garlic, they add pepper to it. So they use feet. Now for cholent, I'm telling you a secret recipe now for cholent. If you want to make a good cholent that is a little greasy, on the greasy side, you put bones to the feet, not just ordinary bones. Some bones that are not from the feet are also good. They're called marrow bones. The marrow bones are also, they have the marrow. The only thing is that the feet are even stronger. The only problem with the feet bones is that they have a smell. So some people don't like the smell. But some of the better cholents, really cholents, they put feet. So feet bones are used for a variety of purposes. So if you wonder, why go to the bother? Well, that's why, because there's all kinds of recipes with these things.
When you take the foot off,
That's correct. You take the foot off by the ankle, and all you're left is with the hoof, and pretty much at the front, at the upper part, not where the actual hoof is, because that's solid. That's more of, I think it's a little bit higher. It would be best to bring in a picture next time of what it looks like.
Because if you take it over the ankle, at the top end,
That's what some say. Some say, there is an opinion that holds that the blood will just travel on the lengthwise, lekol ha'orech, and it will eventually come out. But that's what we hold. We hold that you make an incision just to allow it to, I guess, drain a little bit better. I guess in an area where the blood could drain from. So the incision, that wherever you cut, you would place down for the blood to drain. Otherwise, as they say, I think the Shach also brings it down, it would be like you're being molech in a kli she'eino menukav. It's like you're salting a piece of meat in a vessel that has no holes. Where's the blood going to go? If it's in the hoof, it's going to sit. So you have to, wherever you put the cut, you face it down so that the blood should drain out from there. This is as opposed to, the Shach says, as opposed to regular bones. Regular bones, which we have to salt too. Usually we don't salt the bones by themselves because we're salting the meat with the bone. But regular bones that you would salt too, in case you want to have bones, just plain bones, you wouldn't have to worry about cutting it because it just easily comes out. As opposed to the hoof, which is much more, I guess, solid, is a little bit more difficult to have the blood drain out. That's why we need to cut it. According to the Ramon in Samaches, if you did not cut the tlafayim, the hoofs, whatever is inside is usher. So he holds, at least he's, yeah, it's like a kli. So he holds that the tlafayim, whatever is inside the hoof, you're not going to eat the actual hoof outside, but the inside will be usher because of you didn't cut it. The dam did not really come out. You didn't go for, yeah, that's how he holds, yeah. Wow. Doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, no. Yeah, sometimes basically whenever we answer something because it didn't work the first time, roasting usually not help. There are a few exceptions to that. There are times you can do a melicha shniya too. So depending on what you're dealing with. Something that...
Heart you can roast?
Heart, we'll get to it. Heart is a very, very interesting one. And how to deal with it, very interesting. There's some leniencies to it, but there are reasons you may not want to eat it, and we'll talk about it. Okay, we'll get to it. Okay, so that was the hoofs. What about the brain? I don't know if you've ever dissected a skull. No, whatever. No? Okay. You will notice that there is a krum. The moach sits within a membrane. I think they call that English. Krum. So you have the skull, you have a membrane, and then you have the brain. And Baruch Hashem, this is all Mishamayim, everything Mishamayim that Hashem made. Imagine somebody got hit in the head, there's no membrane. Imagine if the brain was much closer to the skull. Imagine the skull was thinner. I mean, we're talking about the brain here, we're not talking about a finger. So it's incredible. The hashgacha in the condition of how everything functions. So there is a krum in between the gulgolet, as it's called in Hebrew, between the skull and the moach, and it's there for protection. But it's also in the way between the gulgolet, between the skull and the moach. It's in the way. So if you're salting it, can you really get to it? It's a problem. This krum really would prevent any dam from being niflat, from being able to come out. The Rashba brings down, therefore, that for tzli, if you were to just do tzli, you don't need to worry about anything. You can just put the whole head facing down from the mokum hashchita, or the nostrils, put it down for the blood to flow out, and that'll be fine. In other words, he says you won't even have to perforate that krum if you're doing tzli. So if you're doing a whole head tzli, and you're facing it down properly on the fire, you don't have to worry about anything else. Rambam brings down that actually that's the way to do it. Nahagu lo limloach. The minhag is, the Rambam says, not to salt the head, but just to do it tzli. Rosh is, I think, one of the only ones from the Rishonim that brings down that it's possible to have it both ways. And he says that you have to actually make a hole in the bone and through the krum, and then, of course, to make it face down to have the blood drain. Yeah. So he says, however, if you want to roast it, if you want to do tzli, even though it would be mutter by just placing the mokum hashchita down like the Rashba says, we are concerned that the head might turn around. Head rolls. It might turn around. So therefore, he says, for tzli, you want to do tzli, because of that chashash, you're better off just taking out the moach and salting it first. But he says that that's only a chumrah. You don't have to follow that. I think even the Rosh holds that it was a chumrah. Because what are we afraid of? It may turn around in the middle of the tzli. So therefore, just take out the moach. But lechatchilam beikar adin, you can just do tzli to the whole head. Just make sure that the blood is able to flow out by having the mokum hashchita or the nostrils facing. But that is a chashash. That is always a chashash. Brought down, it may turn around. But if you're not doing tzli, then he does require you to make the hole to be able to go through the skull and the krum to be able to get to the moach. And then, I guess, with the proper, melicha, you'll be able to accomplish getting the blood out.
But you're still doing the hole, right?
But you're making a hole.
But you don't want an addition.
You want to perforate. It's just for the brain. You want to perforate the membrane, get to the moach, only for that reason. That's the reason for. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Does it matter see the hole there, or can the hole be anywhere?
No, the hole, when you're making a hole through the membrane, it's somewhere in the skull. Anywhere in the skull. Anywhere in the skull, yeah, sure. Yeah. All right, as we will see, I'm just going to read it out to you, and then we'll look at it inside. Shuchan Aruch passes like the Rosh, that if you want to make that hole, that is a possibility. Make the hole that will penetrate the skull and the membrane, and then salt it with the hole facing down. But apparently it appears that everybody would agree that if you could just take out the brain and salt it and take care of it separately, that would be better. Or cut the head in two. I saw that the Ramah in Siman Samaches says that it's not a good idea to roast, you can call it tzli, yeah. To do tzli on the whole head as one. Even if you have the base hashchita facing down. He also holds that you should first take out the brain, not do it as a whole.
Here's the sign. When they cut it, there's a small
snail, worms, you mean?
Worm, right.
What's interesting about the head is actually the head of a lamb, of sheep. They do have worms. There is a lot of chalev. Just in case you're interested in doing it, it's important to remember that shchita, even though it's relatively easy to do, you still have nikor. Nikor, which is treiberen, as it's called in Yiddish, means to extract the veins and the prohibited chalev. And on the head of the sheep, especially the sheep, from what I recall, there's a lot of chalev. You want to have an oxtail, there's chalev on the oxtail. Certain parts of the behemoth doesn't have so much chalev, and other parts have more. So it's a whole expertise to be able to know to remove it. Chaylev is also. I mean, it's treif. Here you have a kosher animal. The shechita is the best, right? But chaylev, or dam. So you have to make sure even though the shechita is great, the animal is kosher and glatt, you still have to concern yourself with getting all the dam out and the chaylev. And if you're going to have the back part, you're going to have the gid hanosha removed. And not very few people know how to remove the entire gid hanosha, the sciatic nerve. Yeah, sure. Yeah, no people. Yeah, but here in Los Angeles, we don't really see it. And that is what the minhag of the Ashkenaz community is not to eat, that part of the animal, because it's too cumbersome, too much trouble, and expensive. Everything is about the bottom line. How much is it going to cost? But they say it's very tasty. It's a softer meat in the back than in the front, because the front, the animal is more muscular because of the movement in the back. So anyway, so you have the removal of the chaylev, you have removal of dam, you have arteries that have to be removed too. So the head is a little bit more difficult to deal with, and cleaning it up, the hair and the chaylev, and maybe so forth. How much meat do you have already? So I guess people who want to get every bit of meat, they would go to that bother. However, one of the tastiest fats, if you're interested, is the fat of sheep, certain sheep, in their tail, as it's called in Farsi, dombe, or in Arabic, liya, or in Lashon HaKodesh, aliyah, which the Torah discusses, the fat of the sheep tail. You won't see it in every single type of sheep. Certain sheep, the back is like a glob of fat. And in Israel, in certain restaurants, they actually serve it. They actually put the kebab together with this fat, and it's very, very tasty. So next time you have a chance, try it. Yeah. So that's called aliyah. That's mutter, of course. That's not a chaylev. All right. So we're going to see that the mechaber is going to pass like the Rosh. You can go ahead and make a hole in the head. You can get through to the brain, salt it, face it down. But taking out the brain is a lot easier, better. And the Ramos says in Samaches that that's the only way to do it. If you want to, even if you want to do tzli, if you want to do tzli, he says you should not do tzli the whole head. Even if you have the base of shechita facing down, take out the moach first, the brain. Obviously, if you made melicha without making the hole, then the brains will be usher. The krum would also be usher. By the way, if you did salt it like that, without making a hole and then it became usher, the head, the Shach explains the head will be, which is a big chiddush. Here we have a head, we salted it all around, we did not make the hole, so the brain is still inside. So the brain we say is usher. Okay, fine, it's usher. The rest of the head is mutter. That's a chiddush. Why is that a chiddush? No, of course, you did hadacha and then you salted, yeah. But why would the rest of the head be mutter? Usually if the inside is usher, the outside is also usher. I mean, the whole thing becomes usher because of the inside. You want to be careful when you buy a chicken, a whole chicken. Sometimes they put the liver in, they leave the liver inside. You can't salt that chicken. You can't cook that chicken. That's it's been salted already. They put it back inside the liver, in a bag or not in a bag, and it hasn't been broiled yet. And if you're going to cook that chicken with that liver that has not been broiled in the chicken, the insides, it's going to be a problem. So you have to make sure that before you take care of that chicken, is you take out the bag where they put the intestines or whatever else they put, and you take care of them separately. So that's the problem here. Is the brain is inside, salted the whole thing. Now what? The head is mutter. Why should the head be mutter? So I think the Shach explains. Yeah. Well, that's also true. But first of all, the skull acts as a barrier. He says the skull acts as a real barrier from having the blood reach the outside of the meat. So the melicha was good for the meat of the head. The inside is where you have the trouble now. But that's interesting. And even if you hold, he gives a second reason. The main reason is the first one. It's the barrier. Even if you hold a little bit of blood did come out, he says kebola kachpoltoi. When you're salting the head, it's going to come out anyway. Yeah. The head, the actual head.
Skull.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had the head of a fish? It has some meat. Yeah, not too much.
But above the bone.
Right.
Above the skull.
Above the skull. Above the skull, sure. There's actually some meat there. Sure. Yeah.
Not the skull, the side of it.
The head, yeah, the side. Did you have it by you?
No, but I had seen it there.
Yeah, sure. All right, what about the regular bones, the marrow bones? Atzamot sheyesh b'hen moach. There you can salt them without having to make a hole. The Rashba explains that regular bones, when you salt them, that whatever little bit of dam there is, and it's very little, it comes out easily. Shach explains that if you did not salt the bones and you cooked it, and you have 60 connected the bones, the moach in the atzamot is also mutter. And the reason for that is because of what you were beginning to say before. There's not that much dam not that much blood in those bones, so you wouldn't, they would become mutter too. The moach in the atzamot would be mutter, the marrow. You would still need to connect the bones. The bones would be mutter. Okay, so I think we can read it inside. Now that we pretty much understand what's going on, and then we'll go to the heart. We'll just do the beginning of Siman Ayin Beis. So Siman Ayin Aleph basically deals with the head, the hoofs, and the brain. So Harosh, the first seif, deals with the one option, is Harosh chotcho l'shnaim, you cut it in two, umolcho yafeh, and you salt it well, letzad pnim, inside, v'chozer umolech ala se'ar, and you can go ahead and salt it on the hair. So, what do we see from this? The little bit of hair will not prevent the blood from going. So here the Mechaber is going with the opinion that we're not going to worry about the hair. You don't have to singe, because that's what some people would do. They would singe, burn the hair a little bit first, and make it clean, like they do with chickens too. Just with chicken, remember, you have to be very careful not to put it in hot water. One of the ways that the goyim, I believe still do it that way. The way they get those feathers off and every little bit of hair left is by placing it in boiling water. Well, once you put it in boiling, very, very hot water, you can't do melicha anymore. You've ruined the chicken, right? So a little bit on top of a little bit of fire, and that just to singe it, I guess it's called, that would be okay. But here he says you don't have to worry about it with the head. You just salt. If you cut it, you can just salt on both sides, and you're okay. The hair will not prevent the salt from taking out the dam. What about the tlafayim, the hoofs? He holds mechatechotam. So he does say that he goes along with the opinion that you do make an incision, mechatechotam me'at, a little bit lemata at the bottom. Umolcho, you salt it in the bottom, just as we said before, to let the blood drain. You just let that place where you made the cut, make sure it's facing down. And you should also salt the hair. The Ramah just brings down here Ayin le'el Siman Samaches. As we said before, Siman Samaches is where the Ramah talks a little bit more about the details of these kinds of organs or limbs. What happens if you did not do it the right way? Yeah, I'm in Ayin Det, but we are sometimes pointed to Samaches because Samaches is where we see a little bit more information about this type of parts of the animal. Then we have in Sif Gimel Hakrum Shalamoach. Hakrum Shalamoach, the membrane that's sitting on top of the brain, Yeshbo Chutin. There's all kinds of, I forget the medical or anatomical name for Chutin. The membrane has, Chutin is like strings, has like, I don't know what the word is, I guess some sort of veins like. Ve'amoach atzmo yesh bo dam. So we're talking about blood inside this area of the krum and the moach. Ve'eno yotze midei damo b'melichat harosh. Just by salting the head alone, you're not going to be able to extract the blood from this moach, from the brain. Why? You still have the skull, the bone of the skull, that surrounds it. And it's obstructing, it's in the way. And there's no way for that blood to come out, to flow. One who wants to salt the head, he has to cut it. Takes out the brain. Cuts up or perforates the membrane. Then he salts it separately. Now he adds what we said before. There's another option. If you want to insist on doing it that way, where you have the brain inside the head, go ahead and perforate the skull, the bone of the skull, right where the membrane is. Go through the membrane. v'imlach it, and salt the whole thing. Yaniach hanekev lemata, and then just make sure that the hole of the perforation is facing down. Mutar afilu, and then you can even cook. So we see that Mechaber is lenient. He says that even though apparently it's better to take out the brains, if you want to do it this way, just make sure you perforate. You need to perforate. Otherwise you won't be able to get to the blood. So on that we have the Ramah. Ayin le'el simin samaches. If you want more information, look at samaches. Keitzad noegin lechatchila, how we conduct ourselves lechatchila. Lechatchila, he'll tell you basically there that we don't do tzli, the whole thing together. In other words, you take it out. V'im nimlach harosh shalem belo nikivat ha'etzem, akrum v'moach asurim, as we said, if you did salt the head without making a hole, then the krum, the membrane and the moach are also the shar harosh mutar, the rest of the head is mutar, chol shekin shar basar sheima, of course the rest of the meat that may be there too, being salted, no problem. As we said before, the skull acts as a barrier and only the krum and the moach are asur. How about a kulit v'shar atzamot sheish b'hem moach? Kulit are all those kinds of bones that have marrow in them. And all sorts of bones like that, sheish b'hem moach, tzrichim melicha. If you want to salt them, you want to eat them, you have to salt them, they need melicha. Umelicha sa'etzem mo'il lemoach shebekibo. You don't have to worry about it. The salting of the etzem, of the bone, will help the little bit of marrow that's inside. You don't have to perforate marrow bones. Miu lechatchila, the Ramah says, loyim lecheno im shar basar rak levad. Don't salt it together with other meat. There's a concern about the blood of the other meat coming into the bones. That's the Ramah. But the evet shar, but the evet it's mutar. Now the Shach explains on this Ramah that that's only with other meat, not its own meat. Obviously with its own meat, it's okay. Because we're not so machmir on that. In other words, if it's with its own meat, we say it's not, it's not going to affect it. But with other meat, we're a little bit choshesh. We're a little bit concerned. Lechatchila only. Don't do it. But the Eved, we're not makpid. No, another meat on the side. Yeah. Yeah, same animal. Yeah.
It doesn't matter then that so long as this. You're saying if the bone is detached from the meat.
Detached from the meat from some other meat, right? Yeah. This is whatever. Yeah. The Pri Chadash brings down here. I mean, I'm looking at the Ber Hativ, that we customarily nohagim lechatchila lemolchim shar basar mipnei she'anu machzikim bahem darke shar basar. We hold that the bones may contain some blood, and therefore with this blood, you have a situation of kibolo kachpolto. In other words, even though you may be getting other blood, since these bones have some blood of its own, it's okay. But I guess those opinions who are more machmir hold that, how much dam do they really have? Do they have any blood of their own? You don't want to therefore salt it with other meat that has all this blood coming out during them. You want to salt them separately. But with its own, together, it's not going to be a problem. Then we're not machmir to say that blood is going to enter it. As it's all coming out, it's not. We don't say that it's going to be absorbed into the bone. In the same way that everything is coming out, this is going to come out too. That's why it's only a lechatchila. Not everybody holds of it. I think there's a Rashal. No, the Rashal is something else. Yeah. Yeah, as we said before, the Rashba explains that as it is, atzamot, just with a little bit of salt, whatever dam it has, it comes out very easily. So I guess if it's its own blood, own meat, and own bones, we're not so concerned. It's just a little bit of a chumrah of others, because there's a chashash, there's a chumrah of others who say that ein machzikim bahem dam. We don't hold that some must have dam, or if they don't have dam, then we're going to place it with meat that has dam. It's going to be a problem. It's just a chumrah. So real quickly, just one seif in Ayin Beis. Ayin Beis deals with the heart. Just tell you right away, why would somebody not want to eat heart? So look at the Tashbit. The Tashbit says, we're going to learn the halachas of how to prepare the heart, but let me tell you, I don't eat heart, not chicken heart, not meat heart. Because of the Gemara in Horius. The Gemara in Horius says, Leiv is one of those things that are kosher l'shikcha. They make you forgetful. There are certain things that if you eat them, make you forget your learning.
Like
What?
olives?
Exactly. So there are certain items that you may not want to eat too much of in the olive oil. Right, that's
Unless
correct.
there is something similar for heart.
Maybe dip it in the brains.
That would be very thoughtful.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's
Sometimes you may get.
yeah. So the Tashbetz tells us, you know what? All I can tell you is I don't eat it. You know, because of that, it's kosher l'shikha. But if you want to prepare it, you want to eat it, there's a way to do it. So how do we do it? There's a Mishnah Maseches Chulin that talks about how to prepare the heart, and it says there that you have to be korea de lev. You have to tear the heart to take out the dam, the blood. Why do you have to, besides melicha, why do you have to kri over there? Open it up completely, because you have two kinds of blood. The Rashba says it, I think the Meiri explains it in the Leiv. Actually, it's a Gemara. It's a Gemara increases it. Yeah. Gemara increases, this says that there's two kinds of blood when you take out the heart. You will find two kinds of blood. One is the blood that is internal. One is the blood that has accumulated there during the time of Shechita. After you slaughter the animal, all of a sudden a whole bunch of blood rushes in and gathers there in the area of the heart. And the reason why you want to be korea de lev is because of that other blood that has come in. Not it's the regular blood that is always there. The regular blood that is always there, you're going to take out with salting it. But all the other additional blood that has gathered, you want to be korea to remove that. Because Melicha won't be able to take out that blood. I think that's what the Meiri says. The Melicha won't be able to take out that blood. What's interesting, however, about the lev, as I was telling you before, the lev is very unique. The Gemara, I think in Pesachim says, the lev, he says, Gemara says, has a very soft, smooth tissue. Because of the softness of it, you don't have to worry about dam being absorbed and not being able to come out ever again. As we have with other meat, we have those concerns. Here, it's such an interesting situation that if in case you did not do kriya the first time, you did not cut it up, you can always, after the melicha, you can still cut it. No problem. Even though ordinarily we say dam ba'in, that's sitting there, how are you going to remember? Dam ba'in, this is dam ba'in. Not in the heart. This dam ba'in in the heart is like regular dam plita from the inside. So even after melicha, you can cut it up and do melicha again. The Rambam is interesting. We don't hold like the Rambam. The Rambam says if you cooked it already and you didn't do kriya, go ahead and do the kriya now and take it out. We don't hold like that. That it would help in the bishul too, because maybe a little bit did get inside. We hold maybe a little bit did get inside through bishul. I mean, after all, you cooked it. But the Rambam says even that's ad kedei kach. He holds what the Gemara says. It's smooth. Kebola kach boltoi. You know what's pshat kebola kach boltoi? You don't really need. In other words, when we say it's smooth, it's not that it's not boleh at all. It just means that it treats this dam ba'in like dam plita. The smoothness of the heart makes dam ba'in as though it would be like any ordinary blood, that it would therefore be able to come out later on through melicha, through kriya. Now, what's interesting, you have to be careful. If you may read, if you learn this halacha, you may read that if you did not do kriya and you ate it, you're not over on anything, because that's what it says there in the Mishnah. And Rashi says, you know why you're not over? Because there's no kazais of dam there. What? Yeah, because he's talking about there a chicken. In the heart of a chicken, there's no kazais dam. Other Rishonim hold the reason why you're not over is because dam shebishul is dam ben rabona. But Rashi Poshet says that there's no kazais dam. That's what it says. Ain't no over. If you ate it, you're not over. You didn't do it. There's no avera. But that's not the case with the dam of an animal. You better believe that there's more than a kazais. You know how much blood there is in a blue whale? And then, that's already a fish. But anyway, it's incredible. It's incredible. The amount of oil and blood and fish, the big whales. But anyway, so that's the point over there. Rashi says there's no kazais dam, not over, because he's talking about the heart of a chicken. Otherwise, a dam behema, you would be chayav koras if it's dam shchita. What?
Small animal,
Yeah. There is, yeah. Now, Isa Beheta says that after you cut it up and you salted it, you can go ahead and cook it. There's no problem with that. Why do many not have the custom of cooking the heart? They just do tzli. So there's several opinions. The Shari Dura I saw says that you may come to cook it without kriya. You may come to cook it without cutting it up, and therefore it's just better to do tzli. The Moshe says that since melicha without kriya doesn't ruin it, if you did melicha forgot to do kriya, you may forget to do the kriya altogether before melicha, and therefore one should not be mevashel the lev. But as we'll see in the mechaber, halev mitkabetz hadam betocho b'shah shchita. There's a lot of blood gathering in the heart during the shchita. Lefichach tzarich lekoro. Therefore, you have to cut it. Kodem melicha lehotzi dam ulemochel. Take out all the blood and salt it. Achar kach. Ramos says ve'az mutar afilu levashlo. If you did it properly, then you can even cook it. And the mechaber also says he says v'yesh machmir levashlo rak tzorno. Some don't cook it; they only do tzliva. But the mechaber says ve'achar kach mevashlo. No problem. So we see from that mechaber says it's not a big deal. After you did kriya melicha, it's okay. I think the shach basically follows along with the Ramah that we're machmir not to be mevashel, only to be tzoyler. This is the Rashal I was talking about before. The Taz brings the Rashal. Atam, why are we machmir not to be mevashel or not to cook the heart? The reason is shema yevashlu b'lo. You may end up cooking it without kriya, which then would be a problem. Remember, we can't do kriya. We hold you can't do kriya after bishul. You can do kriya after you salted it. But if you cooked it, it's too late. The katuva zevedarke Moshe shamati v'nami shemekilim v'noagin levashlo achar melicha. I see that some do have the meaning to go ahead and cook it after melicha. V'chein kosav Rashal lehakel bazu. You know why the Rashal is making? She'en gzeira zu b'talmud v'lo b'goinim. We never saw such a gzeira in the Talmud b'goinim. Don't cook it because you may forget to do kriya. Especially if you're with the Rambam, but even after you cooked it, you can cut it up and take out whatever blood is still there. But even though we're machmer, of course, as we'll see next week, if you cooked it without kriya, it's a problem. Nonetheless, it is an option. If you do it right, it is an option. In case you want to cook it, you would salt it. You would first be korea. You would salt it and properly, and then you would be able to cook it if you really wanted to. We're not machmer on this. With other organs, it may just be better to do tzli. Here, you can get away with it. Tzli appears to be the choice. With tzli, you don't have to worry about the whole thing. As we will see later on. No, later on, we'll talk about the lungs.
How is it done now with the preparation?
What? By the way, you still should salt it, even though you're going to do tzli. We still salt it. Even with regular meat, the custom, as we will be learning next, the custom is to do a little bit of melicha on it, even though not as much as a regular melicha. You're doing tzli, the custom is to put a little bit of salt, yeah?
Israel,
Yeah.
what do they call it?
Yeah, levavot, sure.
But how do they kosher?
They do it properly. Probably.
Salt.
And they cut it up and they salt it. Sure.
Then you can cook it once.
Then you can cook it if you want, yeah.
There are a lot of Sephardic clay all that.
What? Yeah?
Sephardic clay in different countries, they
Right.
know all these things.
Yeah. They're more experienced with it.
Here by age 14 and all that.
Yeah, we will see. It was the next time that even with sleep, if you forgot to do the kriya, you can do it afterwards, and it's mutter. Problem will only be bishul, except for the Rambam. So that's the procedure. You korea it, you salt it, and then you can have a choice of either cooking it or. All right, Hashem will continue.